I currently live with my parents, so why don't you, a stranger, find accommodation in a more affordable place? What's the big deal, right? My husband, who I thought would bring me happiness, turned out to be using me. I felt betrayed by him, and his family's actions shocked me. It dawned on me that this mother-son duo was oblivious to their own naivety. If they kick me out, who will pay the bills? I realized there was no point in trying to maintain a family with these people. I knew what I had to do next and immediately started making arrangements. As for the appliances, I arranged for a service to pick them up. The following day, I called another service to collect all the furniture and appliances. My husband panicked and began shouting. My name is Michelle Thompson. I'm 35 years old. I've been working from home since finishing college. Though I only commute once a month, I work full-time, and my company has been very accommodating. This is because I have a disability in both legs and use a wheelchair to move around my home. This happened due to a motorcycle accident during college when a car rear-ended me on the highway, launching me into the air. Everything seemed to slow down. This is it, I thought as I flew through the air. Fortunately, my life was not at risk, but my legs became paralyzed. Despite ongoing rehabilitation efforts, they likely won't recover. I've been in a wheelchair for years now, and I've resigned myself to the likelihood of remaining single for the rest of my life. After coming to terms with my condition, my desire to marry resurfaced. One day, friends arranged a blind date where I met Ken, who is 5 years older than me but looks younger. What surprised me was his behavior, which seemed immature for his age. To put it nicely, he's very straightforward. Upon seeing me in a wheelchair, he asked a barrage of questions without hesitation. How do you manage daily tasks? Can you do household chores? What about work and personal care? While others tiptoed around my disability, Ken's directness was refreshing. His curiosity and genuine interest made me feel valued. We continued dating and soon became a couple. I believed I could find happiness with him. At that time, Ken seemed like the only person willing to commit to me long-term. So when he proposed after just 6 months of dating, I was thrilled. But things changed right after we married. When Ken and I moved into my rented standalone house, albeit pricey, its wheelchair accessibility made it perfect for me. The previous tenant had made thoughtful adjustments. Ken loved the spaciousness. Since I spent most of my time at home, I handled most chores. Occasionally, when I asked for help, Ken often brushed it off, claiming he was too tired. He refused even to assist with simple tasks like helping me in the bath. I'm not doing that, he'd say, leaving me to manage on my own, which was slower and more tiring. When I lived alone, a caregiver came twice a week to assist with bathing. I managed the rest of the time by myself, though I always hoped Ken would lend a hand. I often found myself exhausted from the effort. Despite the bathroom's accessibility features, Ken's habits added extra challenges like leaving items scattered around after his baths, which I had to clean up, further prolonging my routine. No matter how many times I asked, Ken wouldn't listen. This house is designed for you to live comfortably. I moved in for you, and you still complain. You wanted to move to Ken. When did I ever say that? This house was originally my place. That's why it's set up for someone in a wheelchair. The first time I invited Ken over, he looked at the spaciousness and the appliances with stars in his eyes. I had invested a bit in electronics and furniture. I'd love to live here after we're married, but now he says, this handrail is such a nuisance. It's like living in an old person's home. Why would you say that? Yeah, I should have looked more closely before. After we started living together, it finally dawned on me. The reason Ken married me was because of the house, the appliances, and the fact that I could handle household chores. Indeed, when we met at a social gathering, he kept asking if I could handle household tasks despite my disability. Ken received praises from his colleagues and friends for being such a wonderful husband. That's so far from the truth. He's just taking advantage of the fact that I can do everything by myself despite my disability. And to top it off, he's been jobless and partying every night since we started dating. Realizing all this after getting married was heartbreaking and brought me to tears. Yet I couldn't bring myself to end it. I kept telling myself there must be love there since we chose to marry. Hey, can I have some allowance? You just got some the other day, didn't you? Yeah, but I've already spent it. Slowly, Ken started relying on me for money without working. I reached out to Ken's mother for advice. Ken doesn't seem interested in working. What should I do? He's always been hardworking. Maybe he just needs a break. Despite her invitation to discuss anything, she always sided with her son. It's natural since he's an only child, she'd say, but I wasn't convinced. With both my parents gone, I had no one else to turn to. I felt utterly lost. I considered confiding in a friend, but the last time I tried, they said, I wish those were my problems. Ken always puts on a good front. That evening, Ken scolded me. Hey, did you go complaining to mom about work? Yeah, so what? Why would it bother an older person like her? I can't believe you. Seriously. Well, maybe you should work so I don't have to worry. After I said that, Ken stormed out. Typical. He always walks out when things don't go his way, only to come back drunk early in the morning. I'm back, babe. It's early. Keep it down so you don't disturb the neighbors. Shut up. Don't boss me around. When he's drunk, he's uncontrollable. All I can do in situations like these is to keep quiet and endure it. I felt like I was reaching my limit. The thought of being alone again was heartbreaking. I struggled between enduring the situation or facing life as a single person. The idea of divorce loomed larger. Then, out of nowhere, Ken suggested, I'm thinking of having my parents move in. What? You mean they'll move here? No, they'll move in with us. He acted as though it was decided that they would move in and had already planned on them staying in our home. I understand the desire to be close to aging parents, but both are still healthy. I don't understand why they would leave their own home to live with us. Do they really need to stay here? It will be crowded with 4 people, and since I work from home, it will be inconvenient. You're always so focused on yourself, huh? I never thought you could be this selfish. I'm just saying, why do they need to move here when they have their own place? Our place is bigger, more modern, and has all the conveniences. It's also accessible for elders. If Ken's parents moved in, I'd have to be on my toes during work hours. Ken's rarely home, but his parents would likely be around a lot since they're retired. Sharing the bathroom, kitchen, I'm slower than most people. I could easily imagine the strain of such a living situation. Can I have some time to think? You better hurry up. We don't have much time, even though he said there wasn't much time. Ken sure did wait. By the weekend, he brought his parents over. I suspect they've been discussing this move for a while now. You know, I've been thinking, maybe you should consider moving to a facility. What? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A facility for me? Yeah, it's a good idea, right? You have your own limits, right? In a facility, they take care of everything. It seemed he wasn't just thinking about his parents moving in, he was also considering sending me away. I'd visit you from time to time. That woke me up. If not now, then when, Ken? What do you think I am to you, huh? You're my husband, aren't you? Would you really tell your wife to go live in some facility? Hold on. When did I say I love you, Michelle? His words flushed my face with anger. Ken was using me. Hadn't I known all along? Wasn't it my fault for letting it come to this? I knew I had to draw a line. Then, even more unbelievable words came from Ken. In this house, I'll live with my parents. You, an outsider, can go live in some cheap facility. What did you just say? I looked to his parents for support, but they wore eerie grins. Why are you laughing? What's the big deal? Were you eyeing my home even before we got married? Things escalated too quickly. Please leave. What? Leave now. How can you talk to my parents like that? Ken's anger flared. If he cared so much for his parents, why didn't he earn his own money and build them a house? Why take mine? My head felt like it was on fire. It's okay, Ken. Michelle must have been shocked by our sudden visit, his mother interjected. We just came to check out the place today. Yeah, we need to see what we're dealing with before moving in. Looks like there are more appliances than last time. They seem quite comfortable here. They were seriously planning to take over my home. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself as I filled my lungs with air. A sudden question struck me. If I leave, how will they manage? His parents are on a pension, and Ken is just a part-timer. I'm covering all the rent and living expenses. Who will pay the $2,800 a month? Do his parents think Ken earns enough? Ignoring my concerns, his parents cheerfully departed. Ken left with them. I'm staying at my parents' tonight. Wait, we need to talk. There's nothing to discuss. I've made my decision as the head of the household. I won't change my mind. Left in shock, I couldn't stay idle. I promptly called a real estate agent I knew. Ken didn't return that night, likely celebrating with his parents. I quickly sorted my belongings into essentials and non-essentials. When Ken returned the next day and saw my organized things, he laughed. Oh, packing already? Found a new place. Yes, I have. Ken looked genuinely surprised by my swift response. And here's the card of a divorce lawyer. From now on, let's communicate through the lawyer. Divorce? Why? If you're kicking me out, there's no point in staying married, right? Ken seemed stunned, clearly not expecting me to bring up divorce. You can't live without me, can you? I don't understand. Who else would marry you? I can live on my own, but you were the one who wanted to get married. It was then that I realized how arrogant and overconfident Ken had been. He approached me assuming I was a lonely, disabled woman desperate for companionship. I'm independent, financially stable, and manage all the household chores since I stay home all the time. I'm the ideal woman. He thought money would keep coming in even if he didn't work. He never considered leaving because he couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was so shocked when I casually brought up divorce. Why? Afraid you'll be single for the rest of your life if you divorce me? Well, if staying married means living with you, I'd rather be single forever. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't up to you. The usually submissive me was now standing up for myself, and Ken seemed flustered. I could sense his panic. I never realized he was so weak. I don't know why I put up with him for so long. Once I decided on divorce, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Maybe I had been too focused on getting married. Anyway, you don't have to move out right away. I'm not rushing you into a facility so soon. Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry, finding a place won't happen overnight. Take your time to think it over, okay? I've already secured a new place, so it's settled. What? Wait a minute, isn't this too soon? I watched Ken's emotions shift from smugness to panic. Dealing with him was becoming increasingly irritating as I calmed down. I'm independent, financially stable, and manage all the household chores since I stay home all the time. I'm the ideal woman. He thought money would keep coming in even if he didn't work. He never considered leaving because he couldn't find anyone else. That's why he was so shocked when I casually brought up divorce. Why? Afraid you'll be single for the rest of your life if you divorce me? Well, if staying married means living with you, I'd rather be single forever. Whether I spend the rest of my life alone isn't up to you. The usually submissive me was now standing up for myself, and Ken seemed flustered. I could sense his panic. I never realized he was so weak. I don't know why I put up with him for so long. Once I decided on divorce, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Maybe I had been too focused on getting married. Anyway, you don't have to move out right away. I'm not rushing you into a facility so soon. Oh, it's fine. I'll do as you wish. Don't worry, finding a place won't happen overnight. Take your time to think it over, okay? I've already secured a new place, so it's settled. What? Wait a minute, isn't this too soon? I watched Ken's emotions shift from smugness to panic. Dealing with him was becoming increasingly irritating as I calmed down. The staff at the facility are aware of my situation, so everything's in order. When did you arrange all this? Were you planning this all along? Yes, even before I met you. In fact, I had been planning for my retirement and had my eye on a particular facility. It's more like a condominium. After an injury during a hospital stay, I delved into investment books. I decided to invest in stocks and real estate, diversifying between my salary and my parents' inheritance. The facility I had in mind? I already purchased it and have been renting it out for income. I never mentioned this to Ken. It's my hidden asset. We don't need to get a divorce. I understand. You can stay here. Let's live with my parents. Do you not understand? Why would I agree to that? He seems pretty dense. Even after discussing divorce, he still believes he's irreplaceable to me. Sorry, but my decision is final. What's your problem? You're so selfish. If you regret this later, it's not my concern. Ken fell silent, lost in thought. It must have been hours. During that time, I packed my belongings. Then I overheard Ken making a phone call. It sounded like he was talking to his parents. Pathetic, needing his parents to make decisions for him, I thought. Then suddenly, Ken said, "Fine, let's get a divorce. Just leave quickly." Ken added begrudgingly, "Maybe he'll miss having me around like a housemaid." But perhaps he thought living with his parents would mean he wouldn't have to do any chores. He has a house, fully furnished. Daily life won't be a problem, at least for now. With that thought, he headed back to his parents' home. I'm going to talk to my folks about what's next. Get ready to move out soon. Yes, I will. I finished moving all my belongings within a week. During that time, Ken never showed up. We met again a day after the move was completed, as I was trying to settle into my new life in my new home. Ken called me outside and said, "Hey, what's going on? This place is almost empty. Where are the appliances?" I had a service pick up those items for me. What? I called the service the next day and had them collect all the furniture and appliances. My husband became agitated and started grumbling. Not only Ken, but also his parents were there. All the appliances here were purchased by me when I was single. The only things that belong to you are right there. I pointed to 3 cardboard boxes. I did leave the clear clothing container we bought after we got married. Michelle, we'll need to divide the property if we're getting divorced. That's right. We can't continue living here like this. What were you thinking? Nobody can live here. What do you mean? The rent is $2,000. Ken and his parents were shocked. I told Ken when we got married, this isn't your own house. No, it's not. I negotiated a lower rent with a real estate agent I know. If I move out, the rent will increase even more, especially since it's a property with disability access. I've already had inquiries from people with similar needs. I recommended they move out. Why didn't you tell us sooner? What are we going to do now? I don't know. I did tell Ken. I never heard about this. I'll sue you. I anticipated that. To be honest, from an outsider's perspective, it might seem like I selfishly initiated the divorce, broke the lease, and took all the furniture and appliances. But I'm certain you can't afford a lawyer, even if, by some miracle, you could. I have a trump card. I showed them some pictures. When were these taken? The photos showed Ken gambling and flirting with other women. I used my money for this. I'm prepared to use these in court, Ken. What the hell? I thought everything was going smoothly. It seems his parents were particularly upset. What's happening? Then suddenly, Ken began to apologize. I'm sorry. Please come back. I need you, Michelle. You're the one who kicked me out. We're already divorced, so what are you talking about? Besides, you don't love me, do you? If that's the case, I'll just leave. Even Ken's parents started apologizing beside him. We have nowhere to go now. That was a shock. What do you mean? Our house was foreclosed on. It turns out Ken's family home will be repossessed in a few weeks. They've gone bankrupt. His father's debt snowballed into an amount impossible for retirees to pay. Ken, who used to receive an allowance from his parents when he was single, probably thought he was in trouble and decided to get married, hoping for support. Now I understand why his mother was so kind before we got married. I can't help you now. We're strangers. Even if my folks and I end up homeless, are you okay with that? You brought this on yourself, didn't you? Can't you at least give me the electronics and furniture? You have money, don't you, Michelle? Are you planning to sell them? His ulterior motive was clear as day. I firmly told him I had no intention of giving him even one piece of furniture or electronics. Please don't say that. Have some mercy. It's too late for apologies now. Sort it out on your own. That's why I'm telling you, I can't sort it out. I told Ken and his father, who were persistent, that if they couldn't pay the rent, they should move out. The lease is in my name, so if I terminate it, that's the end. Evicting them was straightforward. Ultimately, even if the lease was transferred, Ken likely couldn't afford to stay here. I learned all of this from the real estate agent. I can't pay the rent. Ultimately, I decided to terminate the lease. Here, I no longer need this place, and since the divorce is final, everything is over. With that, I managed to evict the stunned family of 3 and lock the door behind them. What are we going to do now? I could move into a facility. Goodbye. I doubt facilities like that have much freedom and are probably not ideal, right? Good luck in that environment. Maybe Ken felt the need to have the last word because he spat out those bitter words. I ignored Ken and his parents and left the scene. But Ken wasn't done yet. A few days later, he showed up at the facility where I had moved. Hey, what's going on here? Ken looked like he was about to faint as he surveyed the facility. This isn't a bad place at all. It's a luxury facility worth $1 million. I had saved up money, and with the earnings from my investments, I bought this place. The previous occupant left at the right time, so I was able to move in immediately. With the proceeds from selling my house and additional income, I still had plenty left over. This facility is top-notch with doctors and caregivers on site. The floor plan is like an apartment, offering plenty of privacy. It's a 3-bedroom unit, so families can live together. There are even couples and families residing here. I can summon a caregiver with the push of a button. And there's daily assisted bathing. I originally planned this as my final residence, but I'm glad I made the move. You had this much money. Ken seemed incredulous. I really don't want you coming here. We're strangers now. Please leave. Then Ken abruptly shifted to a more pleading tone with me. Honestly, it was unsettling. Can't you let me stay here? What are you talking about? That's not possible. We're divorced. You need to face reality. That's exactly why. Let's get remarried. I'm stuck in a motel. Isn't that pathetic? I can't find work without a permanent address. At the motel, he was trying to charm me again. It seemed he had quickly distanced himself from his own parents. In the end, he only seemed concerned about himself. Why don't you take a good look in the mirror? Begging from your parents at your age, living off them after our marriage, and now trying to cling onto your ex-wife, I said firmly. Ken's face flushed bright red. Aren't you ashamed to be here, making a scene? Look around, everyone's watching. Residents peered from their balconies, having been informed to watch out for Ken if he showed up. I always expected Ken to come, whether to gloat over my situation or beg for help. The residents played along, casting sympathetic glances at Ken, turning it into a real-life drama. I won't ask again. Pale face, he muttered and disappeared. I doubt he'll return. Later, I encountered my mother-in-law working as a cashier at a supermarket. My father-in-law was a janitor. She turned away upon seeing me, being scolded by a young employee for her behavior. Ken had found a low-paying job through someone at the motel cafe. I now enjoy hosting home parties and have a fulfilling life with fellow residents. I've made good friends among other wheelchair users, and if I'd known such a community existed, I would have moved here sooner. I've also made time for physical therapy sessions, working toward my goal of regaining movement in my legs. Both at work and in my personal life, I'm content and fulfilled.